Hello from New York, and welcome to this Earnest Talk. I'm your host, Michael Maloof, head of marketing here at Earnest Analytics, the leader in consumer and healthcare data for companies and investors. Today, I have the pleasure to introduce Jacob Wax from Peloton. Jacob has been part of the Peloton family, both as a member of the Partnerships and Corporate Development team and a passionate Peloton member since 2020. He studied finance and biology in college and has always been drawn to the intersection of health and wellness and business. His career began in media and telecom investment banking at Citi. After his time in banking, he was eager to join a platform that positively impacts millions of members' lives. That platform is Peloton. Most importantly, you can find him as at Jacob Wax on the Peloton leaderboard. Jacob, it's been quite a few years of Peloton. Of course, the company's been around since 2012, but the pandemic really turbocharged demand for home fitness. Personally, I remember I was visiting my folks in Florida when the lockdown began, and we were stuck there for months. The day the Peloton delivery folks brought our bike to the house completely changed my lockdown experience. It became like a member of the family. Peloton now has a treadmill, a rower, more online content, and just the other day inked a strategic partnership with Lululemon. Very exciting time to be working in the partnership space at Peloton. Jacob, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do at Peloton?
Yeah, thank you so much for the intro, Michael. Very excited to chat today. And I definitely had a similar story to yours. I joined Peloton in July 2020, pretty early into the pandemic, and got my bike very soon after. And from that first Alex Toussaint class I took, I was immediately hooked. So it's just been incredible to witness the company evolve since then, both as a member of the team and also one of the 7 million Peloton members around the world. And so, if I could say anything about the last 3 years at Peloton, I think I've probably earned the right to the worst pun to come out of the pandemic, which is it has been a ride, but it's been a really fun one. So, I am on the strategic partnerships and corporate development team here at Peloton, and our core focus is collaborating with great companies to introduce our platform to new audiences and to make it even more exciting to be a Peloton member. So the Lululemon partnership you mentioned is a great recent example. Our co-branded apparel actually just launched yesterday. I think I'm already personally contributing to the Earnest transaction data set. But all of the decisions that we make, the Lululemon partnership and beyond, are really data driven. And it's so important to understand our members, understand the health and fitness category, and broader consumer trends. So I'm very excited to dive into the conversation.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Jacob. First and foremost, your team's been in the news a lot lately with the Lululemon partnership. When Peloton is looking to make a strategic partnership like it did with Lululemon, what role does your team play and what kinds of data are you using?
Yeah, totally. We are really excited to launch our partnership with Lululemon. It's bringing together the best in fitness content, the best in athletic apparel for a combined community of about 20 million. That kind of tentpole strategic partnership is really a huge cross-functional effort. So we are super lucky to work with incredible colleagues on content, product, marketing, and other teams across the company to bring those partnerships to life. Our team specifically collaborates directly with our partners, helps manage the end-to-end process. So everything from that initial outreach and brainstorm of what a partnership could look like, building a business case and getting internal buy-in, the formal agreement and negotiation, and then ongoing tracking, optimization, and expansion efforts. In terms of the data behind it, Lulu in particular, we're really fortunate to have such a passionate member base that is always excited to tell us what they'd love to see on the platform, what brands and artists they love, ultimately what matters to them. Like you could, if you went through the comments on Peloton social channels, you could build an incredible playlist just from comments about what artist series our members would love to see. So we get so many signals from our members, and from all those signals, as well as other internal, external data that we monitor, it's abundantly clear that our members love Lululemon. I know I do. And there's a ton of shared brand love across both of our communities. And then lastly, it just really excites us about the white space opportunity to really deliver value to our respective members and shareholders over the long term of the partnership.
I can personally attest to some of that community passion. Uh, can you speak to some of the macroeconomic trends your team is looking at right now? Anything interesting in the spending data in particular?
Yeah, so taking a step back beyond just health and fitness, we're definitely focused on those macro category level spend trends to understand, what categories our members care about, what categories consumers overall are prioritizing coming out of the pandemic, and of course, underscored by inflation trends that we've seen over the last few years. So really, it's about what actually matters. And there was a recent article in the Wall Street Journal actually that highlighted a trend we've seen borne out pretty clearly in transaction data for the last several months and possibly beyond. Uh, we're increasingly prioritizing experiences. So, led by millennials and Gen Z, consumers generally are spending more in categories like travel, events than before the pandemic. And in the last 2 years in particular, there's been a huge surge. So that is a trend we're monitoring. It's one of the many reasons we were excited to announce Peloton on Tour this summer, which is bringing classes, panels, community events with instructors to cities across the world, and really meeting members where they are. The festivities kicked off in LA and Atlanta over the summer. I think the party in Chicago just wrapped up, and we're taking the tour across the pond to Berlin and London over the next few months. So we're all really excited about that.
Very cool. Yeah, that shift to experiences is definitely something that bears out across categories in the data right now. That's really interesting. So, how else is your team using transaction data?
Yeah, it's a great question. One of the really fun aspects of our role as a partnerships and corp dev team is kind of getting to be students of our industry. Always keeping on top of the latest health and fitness trends, understanding how the category has evolved, trying to get a sense of how the category will evolve, ultimately to inform how Peloton can continue delivering a best in class experience to our members. So transaction data in particular really helps shed a light on what's actually resonating with our members, with fitness consumers overall. And then just on partnerships, it's also a great resource to support how we think about what's possible. And when we think about the realm of possibility, our focus is categories and brands that our members care about. So Earnest share of wallet data, as an example, is one piece of that puzzle to help inform that.
And digging in on that just a little bit on the macro trend section, what are you seeing specifically in health and fitness category? Any big differences before and after the pandemic?
Yeah. Health and fitness definitely makes the long list of industries that were very radically impacted by the pandemic. And as the dust has started to settle, we're starting to settle into normalcy. I think one of the most promising trends is that we've seen just heightened overall focus on health and fitness. More people than ever are spending on fitness memberships and subscriptions, and that really gets us fired up to go to work every day, knowing that more and more people are either just starting their fitness journeys or maybe leaning more into them, and Peloton can be their guide, their community along the way. Another trend, I guess, in the last few years, a really key focus area in the industry overall has been the recovery of in-person fitness, gyms, studios, fitness centers, and it definitely differs by operator. But one of the interesting themes that we've seen is kind of this interesting increasing polarization across the value spectrum. So if you think about kind of the high value, high low price end of the spectrum, those gyms are really focused on price advantage, appealing to a wider audience. And then on the opposite end, others are focused on delivering as much of a premium experience as possible, investing in new amenities, finding other ways to increase value, ultimately increase price of their membership. And so what we've seen is both of those subcategories kind of on the ends of that spectrum have seen members return and new members join at a faster pace than other gyms that straddle the line.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know a report earlier this year, Earnest found that foot traffic to gyms is still below pre-pandemic levels, and spending on fitness classes lags most actually among the highest income earners. Um, in that report, Earnest analysts posited this underperformance among certain cohorts could be explained by the rise of at-home fitness brands like Peloton. Do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I think it really points to this broader trend of omni-channel fitness that we've seen. Convenience is key, and it's increasingly important to meet our members where they are, and that could be at home, that could be outdoors, that could be in a fitness center or a gym, that could be while you're traveling on the go. Ultimately, people want and deserve that optionality. So looking at brick and mortar operators and how they've responded to that trend, they've invested in their digital ecosystem. And that's both to enhance the in-person experience, but also to connect and engage with their members beyond the four walls. And then from our standpoint, we're really focused on making it easier than ever to experience Peloton and breaking down the barriers to enter the ecosystem. So our app is at the center of that. You can download the Peloton app and join for free for the first time to access the selection of sample classes. You can sign up for one of our app memberships. And with that membership, you get access to the content library without needing equipment. I know for me, I've gotten hooked on our meditation collection. For the life of me, I can't tell you how a Ross Rayburn sleep meditation ends because I fall asleep before it does. But it's just another great use case. And, going back to this idea of meeting our members where they are. And then lastly, just on this point, of course, our all access membership integrated with the bike or tread or row is a great way for members to maximize their experience, given that it's integrated with the hardware. And so we're also always looking for ways to introduce prospective members to that experience as well. So one example, we're really proud to partner with Hilton to feature Peloton bikes across their entire hotel portfolio in the US. So for our members, it's perfect for keeping that daily or weekly streak going while you're on the go. And then for prospective members, it's kind of just no strings attached chance to try Peloton out.
Hmm. And you just mentioned outdoors. What trends do you mean by that? What are you seeing?
Yeah, it's a great call out. People are getting outdoors more. It's a trend that we've seen pretty consistently, and with that, they're transacting with, or they're transacting more with the brands that support those outdoor experiences. I think looking back to the pandemic and definitely from personal experience, it started out and spiked early. I know when I was spending my first couple of months of the pandemic in the city, I've never seen Central Park more crowded. But even today, consumer spend on outdoor products and services is still steadily growing. And it spans multiple categories. Auto sales is one example, kind of like an indirect category, has grown significantly in the last few years. And while it's not maybe the primary reason, maybe part of it is, folks trying to find local hikes, visit national parks, or generally just get outdoors. And it's also interesting to pair that transaction data with other data points that we track to paint the bigger picture. So for outdoor specifically, last year, I think about 170 million Americans participated in outdoor recreation, and that's an all-time high. It's more than half the population. And then when you drill down into the subcategories, I think all of us have probably heard about pickleball by now, but across the board, almost every outdoor category is growing, and that definitely extends to fitness. So for Peloton, outdoor is a very important component of our content offering, and we're always thinking about ways to not just plug into existing outdoor activity, but also enhance and encourage it. So examples include outdoor guided hikes, and last summer we launched the Just Work Out feature, one that I personally love for my walk to work every day. It's kind of activity tracking in an unguided session. So really just going back to, you'll hear me say this phrase a lot, meeting our members where they are, and a big part of that is outdoor.
Yeah, man, maybe I need to try that. Start my day with an early win just for walking to the office.
It's a great start to the day.
When you look out from your media and analytics seat, basically, what advice are you giving to someone who would just start to look into third-party data, learning what's out there, and trying to decide what data sets they should leverage right now?
Yeah. I think it's really important to view any third-party data through the lens of what strategic decisions could this inform. So for us, one example of third-party data as an input is building a business case for a partnership. So we have a very clear use case. Reason being, there are tons of data sets out there. There's transaction data, there's foot traffic data, app insights, list goes on. And more definitely isn't always better. So you have to make a call based on one, how many tangible insights can you gather from that data set? And two, how will those insights actually inform decisions that matter most to your team, to the business overall? And then at the same time, I think you also need to go into your search knowing that every data set inevitably has some gaps. So looking at spend data in particular, consumers just can transact through more channels than ever, whether that's directly with the company, that could be online or in store, through an app store with a third party retailer. You could keep going down the rabbit hole with third party marketplaces like Facebook, eBay. So no data set's going to capture all of those different channels. And you have to understand and really go in knowing what channels matter most to your business and what matter most to the categories that you're tracking. It kind of feels like a puzzle at times where sometimes you can kind of piece together the full picture with multiple data sets or maybe adjusting the data using some assumptions sourced from internal benchmarks. That's also a really fun aspect of the role as well, is that puzzle making. Couple other points that I just want to bring up on accuracy is a really big one. We share insights from third-party data to stakeholders across the business. So accuracy is paramount. And transaction data in particular, definitely worth spending that extra time checking with publicly disclosed figures, whether that's in quarterly filings or also maybe harder to track, but press releases, company presentations, any other desktop research source that you can find to validate the data set that you're evaluating. It really makes it so much easier to get buy-in internally when you can point to that reliability with tangible examples. And then last point, and this is more for, I guess, when you're using the data and probably goes without saying, but it's always important to round out the hard data with the context. So is there a seasonality pattern that's driving an uptick in spend? Are companies leaning more into promotions or special offers? Was there a product launch, pricing change? Like there's, obviously so many context factors that sometimes is obvious from the data, but sometimes isn't. So if it isn't clear from the transaction data alone, Google alerts are definitely your best friend.
Great insights there. Yeah, this follows the theme that we talk about at Earnest all the time. It's really about building your data mosaic, all the data sets that you're going to need to build a high conviction view on a decision, on a name, on a trend, anything like that. Also, personally, big fan of Google Alerts here, even bigger fan of your product. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jacob.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael. And let me know next time you're around a Peloton bike. Would love to hop on a ride.
All right, I'll have to find at Jacob Wax on the leaderboard. Thanks again for tuning in to this Earnest Talk. That was Jacob Wax from the Partnerships and Corporate Development team at Peloton, who led us through how transaction data is powering Peloton's member-first mindset from the macro to micro levels. Thank you so much for joining us.